You won't believe what happened when a so-called HOA Karen decided to take matters into her own hands and kicked my disabled daughter off the school bus. But here's the twist. What she didn't know was that I'm a Navy SEAL. Yeah, that's right. I've spent my life in intense, high-stakes situations, but nothing could have prepared me for this. It all started when my daughter, who's dealing with some serious health challenges, was simply trying to get to school like any other kid. This woman, with an air of superiority, decided that she was the one to make the rules. She pulled my daughter off the bus in front of everyone, not even giving a second thought to the fact that she had no right to do so. I'm sitting at home, hearing this over the phone, and my blood is boiling. But what's even more shocking is that she had no idea who she was messing with. I can't stand bullies, especially when it comes to my family. What happens next will leave you speechless. How far will I go to make things right for my daughter? Well, you'll just have to keep watching to find out. Stay tuned, because this is about to get real. To understand why this whole thing set me off so badly, you need to know a little more about my daughter. She's had her fair share of struggles, physical therapy, doctor's appointments, and a constant battle with her own body. Every day, she fights to do the things most kids take for granted. And here she was, trying to simply get to school with the help of the bus, when this woman decides to play judge, jury, and executioner. It wasn't just about the bus ride, it was about control. Now, I'm no stranger to dealing with difficult situations. As a Navy SEAL, I've been in situations that would make most people's heads spin. But what's different about this? It's personal. My family, my little girl. When someone messes with my kids, the gloves come off. This wasn't a random confrontation with some stranger. It was an adult with a power trip, using her position to make life harder for a child who already had enough to deal with. So, I did what any father would do. I started asking questions. Who was this woman? Why did she think she could just throw my daughter off the bus? And most importantly, how far was I willing to go to put an end to this? Little did I know, things were about to take a turn that would lead me down a road I never saw coming. I couldn't shake the image of my daughter, standing on that sidewalk, looking confused and scared. I knew I had to act fast. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How could this woman, who'd probably had no idea what my daughter went through every day, think she had the right to make decisions about her life? I started digging into this woman's background. Turns out, she wasn't just any overzealous HOA member. She had a history of stirring up trouble in the neighborhood. She caused problems before, complaining about anything and everything, but never to this extent. I found out she had some strange vendetta against the school bus system, and it seemed like she was willing to go to any lengths to make her voice heard. But what I didn't expect was how the other parents would react. Some were on my side, rallying for what was right, while others stayed quiet, afraid to get involved. It didn't help that this woman had a few powerful allies in the neighborhood. She was well connected, and that gave her a certain kind of confidence. At the same time, I had to deal with the school administration, who seemed far too comfortable brushing this off as a misunderstanding. They were slow to respond, more concerned about keeping the peace than doing the right thing. That's when I realized I wasn't just fighting for my daughter anymore. I was fighting against a system that turned a blind eye to people like her, people who didn't have the voice or power to stand up for themselves. But I wasn't going to back down. Not this time. I began to strategize. Every call, every meeting with the school, each step was carefully planned. And in the back of my mind, I knew I had something this HOA Karen didn't, the resolve of someone who'd been through hell and come out the other side stronger. But what would that actually mean in this battle? Would it be enough to finally put an end to her reign of terror, or was I walking into something much bigger than I had bargained for? The more I learned about this woman, the more it became clear she wasn't going to back down. And neither was I. I started making calls, rallying support from other parents who were frustrated with her behavior. But even as I built a case against her, it felt like I was just hitting dead ends. The school kept pushing me off, saying it wasn't a big deal, and the HOA just seemed to turn a blind eye. It was as if I was fighting a shadow, No matter how hard I pushed, it never seemed like I was getting any closer to a solution. Then things took an even darker turn. One afternoon, I got a call from the bus driver. The woman had somehow convinced him that my daughter was causing trouble on the bus. He said she wasn't listening to instructions, something that wasn't true at all. I could tell the driver was just trying to cover his tracks, but I knew the story would start gaining momentum if I didn't do something fast. It felt like the walls were closing in. The pressure kept building. The HOA Karen started making her presence known more aggressively, showing up at school events, talking to anyone who would listen about how unsafe the school bus was with my daughter on it. Every time I tried to talk to the school, I felt like I was getting nowhere. They were still trying to keep the peace, still too scared to confront her head-on. It was almost like I was caught in a game of chess, but the pieces kept moving around me. I could feel the tension in the air, the anticipation of something big coming. My patience was running thin. It wasn't just about defending my daughter anymore. It was about standing up for what was right, for pushing back against a system that had turned its back on us. But as the days passed, I started to wonder, was this woman just a pawn in something bigger? Something more dangerous? The feeling kept creeping in. What if there were forces at play that I hadn't even noticed yet? With every conversation, every meeting, it seemed like I was getting closer to a storm I wasn't fully prepared for. I had no idea what was about to happen next, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't backing down. The final showdown was coming, and it was going to be explosive. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the phone call I received that afternoon sent everything into a tailspin. It was from one of the parents I had reached out to for support. They had just witnessed something that left them stunned. The HOA Karen had somehow managed to get a meeting with the school principal, and what she said to him had everyone's heads spinning. She had presented a fabricated story, claiming that I had threatened her, something completely untrue, of course, but it was the perfect lie to make me look dangerous. And the worst part, the principal seemed to believe her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My blood was boiling. This woman had taken things way too far, and now she was playing dirty. Not only had she kicked my daughter off the bus, but now she was trying to turn the tables and make me the villain in this whole situation. It was a move I hadn't seen coming, and I could tell it was going to make things even harder. The timing of it all felt like a calculated attack. I started wondering if I was dealing with more than just an angry homeowner with too much time on her hands. What if she had allies in places I couldn't see? What if this wasn't just some petty neighborhood feud, but a coordinated effort to tear me down? As the walls closed in on me, I realized that I wasn't just fighting a single person anymore. The stakes were higher than I'd ever imagined. If I couldn't prove that this woman was lying, I risked losing everything: my reputation, my relationship with my daughter's school, and worst of all, the trust of the people who were just starting to back me up. The clock was ticking, and every move I made felt more critical than the last. The tension was thick, and I knew that one wrong step could be the end of this fight. It wasn't just about my daughter anymore. It was about exposing the truth, no matter the cost. The final showdown came faster than I expected. Armed with evidence that this woman had been fabricating her story, I walked into the school's office, determined to clear my name. I had everything: text messages, witness statements, even security footage from the bus. But the principal still hesitated. His face was tight, and I could see the pressure in his eyes. This was bigger than I thought. The longer he stalled, the more I realized that the web this HOA Karen had spun was much more tangled than I'd ever anticipated. Just as I was about to lose it, the door opened, and in walked someone I hadn't expected. One of the other parents, the one who'd been helping me gather evidence. But this wasn't just any parent. It was someone who had close ties to the principal. I wasn't sure if they were there to back me up or silence me, but when they handed me a document, I froze. It was a formal letter from the HOA, and it contained a shocking revelation. The HOA Karen wasn't just a rogue member causing trouble. She had been secretly using her position to influence school decisions for months, pushing her own agenda under the radar. And, in a move I never saw coming, It turned out she had been working with a small group of school board members who had been helping her get what she wanted.